These 10-minute interviews are always too short, and they're always like, we aim them to be for people with general interest. So most of the humans that we're going to chat to and talk to, other people aren't going to know. So let's start with super basic, super boring. Who are you? What do you do?
So, my name's Margaret Bates, and I'm a waste and resource manager, which sounds quite odd. But what I'm currently doing is I'm working with Defra to set up the scheme administrator. And what the scheme administrator is, because I don't think anyone's going to really know, is how everyone complains there's too much packaging and
Yeah.
producers put too much packaging in and we shouldn't have to pay for it. Well, government has listened to that and setting up a scheme where producers who put packaging on the market are now going to be charged, depending on how much it costs councils to collect that, treat it, and dispose of it. So, my job is to set up the scheme that works out how much it costs local authorities and divides that up between all the producers that put it on the market.
Complex.
Complex, yes. Interesting for me, really, because 5 years ago I was working as a university professor, travelling the world, giving people advice on waste management. Decided to stop that for a while. So I went to an organisation who puts labels on to determine whether packaging is recyclable or not. And then this opportunity came up for a couple of years, and I thought, oh, that sounds interesting. And it is interesting. It's incredibly complex. And I think I just basically have a load of obligated producers, the people who put the packaging on the market, who think I charge them too much money, and a load of councils who think I don't give them enough money. So at least I upset everyone equally.
Well, that's fair. I mean, I would prefer everyone to be upset equally than not. You're responsible for the little triangles that are on the back of a lot of pieces of packaging. Is that right? Where you say you can
No,
recycle this or not?
no. So we used the OPRL, where I'm on comment from, did the round labels which said recycle, do not recycle. The triangles are a European thing, and they don't actually indicate whether it can be recycled or not. They indicate what it's made from. But going forward, what we're hoping to do is to be able to link the UK recycling labelling with the European one so that you'll only have one label. It'll be really obvious what you want to do, what you have to do. And also because of the other legislation that's coming in, so in England it's simpler recycling,
Hmm.
it means that every local authority and every business will collect and separate the same things for recycling. So another thing people say, it's all too confusing. I go to my mum's and she has different recycling than I have, and then I go to work and it's all different again. Going forward, it will all be the same. So it'll be much
I was
easier.
literally about to say that. Like before you say, "Oh, I was at my mum's," I was at my mum's at the weekend, and their recycling bins are totally different to our recycling bins. Friends of ours who live in Cambridge down the road, it's a half an hour drive away. Their recycling bins are different to ours. We can put things in that they can't. They can do, and my parents can do glass, I think, and we can't do glass. You have to walk down opposite the local pub where it's full of pub wine. It's frustratingly inconsistent, and the packaging and the labeling, I guess, is it's part of the cause of that problem, and the fact that there is no unifying body that says, right, you can recycle these things in this way, in this manner. So that's what you're trying to put into place.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're trying to do. And then there's a sort of third lever in all of this as well, which is the deposit return scheme.
Mm.
So basically, any drinks container within size limits that you buy that's made of steel, aluminium, or PET plastic will going forward have a deposit on it, which means that you'll need to take it back to the shop to get your money back on it. And this has two benefits. Well, it increases recycling, it has a
Mm.
massive impact on litter, but it's also much better for the recyclers and the bottle manufacturers because they get really good quality material back that hasn't been mixed by someone who thinks you can recycle nappies, for example. Um,
Oh,
and so,
tell me those people don't exist.
oh, they do. It's it's quite depressing,
Who's trying
and
to recycle a nappy?
you would be surprised how people misunderstand things. So one of the things that the organisation we're setting up will do is going to help with the communications. So we're looking around at what's good communications now and how can we work with local authorities to improve it. But some of it is quite hard working cases. So the legislation that's coming in, the simpler recycling, I said, is going to require everyone to have their food waste collected, which
Hmm.
is brilliant because it has such a big carbon climate change impact. But associated with that, a lot of people have garden waste collection. And I know that garden waste means I take my lawn clippings and where I've been weeding and all of that sort of thing goes in. But there are many documented cases where people have gone, oh, well, I put my garden furniture in it because it's garden waste. Or then people say, we'll just call it green waste. And then a lot of garden furniture, for example, is green. So that communications is constant to keep people going. But but there's so much happening. It's really exciting because in 10 years' time, the world of waste and packaging is not going to look the same as it does now. It's going to be so much
Yeah.
better. So much more stuff will be
See, you're a
recycled.
lot kinder than I am. I would be looking at the people putting green garden furniture into green waste bins and requiring them to take a test to be allowed to just have that bin in the first place. Because that seems fairly obvious that you shouldn't put garden furniture into an organic grass clippings bin. Like I've seen people around here put like really quite chunky things into their garden waste bins, but never something that doesn't or wouldn't be compostable.
Yeah. I mean, if they
That's
do it
yeah.
in a way with big stuff, that's almost better because the big stuff's
Mm,
very easy for the system to remove. It's when there's lots of little things like, where your plastic bag's been left out and it's sort of degraded. But the other
yeah.
thing we're hoping that we'll be able to do when we have all of these DRS, simpler, and EPR, extended producer responsibility, the one I mentioned first, going, is that people will really start to understand and have greater clarity about what they can do. And because then we'll stop people going, oh, I've got this thing. Is it recyclable or not? I don't really know, but I'll put it in there because better safe than sorry. And actually,
Yeah.
better safe than sorry doesn't work in recycling world because it's then a contamination that involves quite a lot of energy to separate it out, or it might have another effect, like, I don't want to drink out of something that's been recycled next to a nappy, as I said before.
Hmm. I was watching, I think it was a Joe Lycett thing a couple of years ago where he did a bit on recycling and waste management and how people who put the wrong things in recycling bins almost prevent the system from working, not altogether, but they prevent it working from efficiently and effectively, and it does more harm than good. It's not that you just dump everything in and the system sorts it out. It's actually a really big problem. And the
Yeah,
lack of clarity and the lack of consistency, I suppose, is part of that. Because, like, the most middle class thing that I will probably say today, when you open some hummus, the little plastic lid that you take off the top of the hummus is not recyclable in the same way that the pot is recyclable. I can put the pot into our blue bin outside, but the little film on top has to go into a bag and then off to the local supermarket with the soft plastics thing, which you've still got to remember to go and take. It seems that there's a twofold problem. One is having the communication to say, yes, you can recycle this in the first place. and the other is providing the facility to actually be able to do all of that recycling. So there was a story, as I seem to recall, in the news not so long ago, political point scoring story where an opposition MP had said, "Oh, you're going to have," it might have even been Rishi, I don't remember. Everyone's going to have like 6 bins outside their house.
Yeah.
That's not where we're going, but I can see why people think that that might happen. So how do you alleviate that concern, but how do you also address the fact that there are so many different types of recycling that we're going to need either different provision or different sorting facilities to make it function?
So it was actually 7 bins that they said we
7
were going to
bins.
need. Yes.
I've given them
So
credit then.
yeah. So plenty of space, which isn't the case. And
Mm.
there's something that people can do to assess it called a TEEP exemption. So technically, environmentally, or economically practical. So if it's not
Mm.
viable for you to have extra bins, then you don't need to have extra bins. And what we've been doing is working with local authorities, and the other nations do this, so Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland do it as well, about how to come up with rules that encourage best practice, but don't put ridiculous, what's the word? Ridiculous pressure on local authorities. And it was
Mm.
interesting that you used the term efficient and effective. So we expect local authorities to provide an efficient and effective waste management service. And if they don't, then we're setting up a system that will work with them to help them improve their service. So hopefully we'll see generally a step change, and we'll see more throughout the whole value chain of people working together. So to see producers working with local authorities to deliver that change. And we set
Mm.
up committees where we've got individual local authorities, local authority groups, trade associations from industry, and individual companies all working together to try and deliver this change. And there is this massive change taking place. And some of it you'll see because you'll see the big advert that says now recyclable. And other
Yeah.
stuff is kind of sneaked through. One of my favourites is if you buy tomato ketchup, you've got a small child, I'm guessing you buy tomato ketchup. Probably
Oh
the
yeah.
most famous brand of tomato ketchup you can buy in a squeezy bottle.
Mm.
Now, the cap on that used to be made of a different plastic. So, not actually the cap, sorry, the valve in it that allowed it to seal when you'd squidged it. So it didn't
Yeah.
just drip everywhere, which meant the cap wasn't recyclable. They've worked really hard, and now the whole thing is recyclable, including the cap, which is pretty amazing. What's even more amazing is that they've offered to work with us to share how they did that with their competitors so they can all go for best practice. Now, I think that's awesome.
That's incredible. And I, this show seems to be sponsored by the number 2 for me. Whenever I talk about these things, there's always 2 sides of stuff. One is the language around all of this that's used. There's committees being set up, there's processes, there's bodies, there's all of this kind of thing that I think you go to the pub and talk to people about it and say, oh, there's so much bureaucracy in the system. But then it's very, very complicated, and it needs that level of administration and that level of involvement to make any sense of it or to put anything in place. The country's not small. The other side is then working with the providers and the suppliers, but convincing them that it's in their best interests to do this anyway, and to have a company like said ketchup manufacturer, who we're not naming the brand of, but I might put in the notes, and we all know who they are. If they're willing to step up and say, all right, this is going to cost us a lot of money, but there's a good reason to be doing it, and then we're going to help other people do it, even if it's to our detriment, then I think that's incredibly admirable. But what convinces them to get involved? Is it they can't just be doing it out of the kindness of their hearts because there's a shareholder bottom line, and we've seen how shareholders respond to costs. So presumably it's somebody there has gone, we need to do this because in 30 years' time, if we don't, there won't be anyone to sell ketchup to anyway.
Yeah, I think increasingly businesses are seeing that sustainability isn't an add-on, it's an essential. And it's
Mm,
interesting with producer responsibility because nearly every business I speak to says, I think we fully support EPR, but, and the but
mhm.
is always, you're asking me to pay too much money, I shouldn't have to pay any money, or something like that. But I think we were probably in the same situation when they first started bringing in health and safety laws, because that involved a change in how we thought about things. It involved for many businesses an additional expense. But nobody would dream of saying, well, I'm not going to protect my workers. You know, if they die, they die. And it's the same for the environment, isn't it? Increasingly, you can't
Yeah.
run your business to the detriment of the environment when there's a much more sustainable option. You're going to have to pick the sustainable option. And I think for us as consumers, because I might be setting up this scheme, but I also go to the shop and I also segregate my own waste, you know, all the, it's
Mm.
like everyone else does. I think we've got real responsibility to make those decisions. And government can make it easier by having clear and consistent labelling, by having the same things collected. But, you know, if there's a refill solution that's offered, then think about doing it. Actually, do think about what impact you're going to make.
Yeah. I think there's the availability of that needs to be addressed. That we use, I'm just going to mention brand names. Why not? We use eCouver washing up liquid here. We used to use their laundry liquid until we discovered we were slightly allergic to it. But there's no refill station. So we're still recycling the plastic bottles that comes in and then going to the supermarket and buying another one. The nearest refill station is a 25-minute drive from us, which is not particularly environmentally friendly, and not very convenient either. And I keep thinking about this with food as well. You go to the supermarket and there is so much that is in plastic that, I'm showing my age, but when I was a kid, you go to the grocers and it would be like you pick up raspberries and apples and whatever, and it wouldn't be that way. So we've almost added packaging into the mix for some things where it didn't exist, and then we've got a situation to remedy. So told you we'd run over, massively run over. But two sides to a final question then before we wrap up. What can businesses and what should businesses be doing? Where can they go to get involved, get advice, and actually do something about it? And on the other side of that coin, what can consumers do to make things better?
So businesses generally, we have a website. It's on .gov.uk, but if you Google Pack UK, it will
Mm-hmm.
come to us. And we have as Defra a number of forums every month where you can sign up, listen in, and know exactly what's happening. And it's not just about the packaging; it's about all the other bits of Defra-led environmental legislation that might impact on you. So that's
Mm-hmm.
well worth signing up for. I was signed up for it before I started appearing on them. And and as a citizen, it's just really, I suppose, to think about what you're doing and what you're buying, and take some responsibility for it as well. So I was watching something and there were a load of people who bought clothes and they were sending them back. The article was, we're sending them back to the people who made them. You made them, you recycle them. But they wouldn't have made them if we didn't buy them. So understand that you do have a role in these things. So when you're saying about packaging on raspberries, um, I'm considerably older than you, but when I was young, you didn't buy raspberries 52 weeks a year. You bought
No.
raspberries when raspberries were in season. And so the reason we now have them in packaging is because they last loads longer, and they have to because of when we're having them, where we're buying them from. And packaging, it might look the same to you now, but the science behind it is amazing. I mean, the fact that you can buy, for example, a chicken in a plastic bag that you then roast in the plastic bag. I can't get my head around it personally, but it's an amazing feat of technology to be able to do that.
Yeah. That's maybe one of the people that we should speak to next for one of these sessions, is someone who has developed that technology and is continuing to develop the next generation of the way these things work. Although, to be fair, I still roast my chickens outside of a plastic bag. I
Oh God, no!
can't bring myself to do it.
The reason I say
It's
I can't get
amazing.
my head around it, it would never occur to me to put a
No,
plastic bag in my oven. I would
no.
just be worried it was going to melt.
Yeah, I'd be terrified. Um, and I completely get what you mean about the raspberries and the in-season produce. We're lucky enough to have a garden here, and we're growing raspberries at the end of the garden. They've taken over the neighbour's garden as well because they are prolific. But we only get them for a short period of time, and they taste great. I've really enjoyed this. I like
Cool. So,
learning things, and I hope that other people will enjoy learning things as well, and go to some of those links and sign up to some of those forums, and start taking a bit of responsibility, because I do think individual people have started to take less and choose to take less responsibility for decisions and actions, and it would be good for people to understand their role and their place in a larger whole. Society doesn't function if everyone doesn't agree to play by a group set of rules.
no, totally
Thank you
agree.
very much for this.
Cheers.
I think we'll leave some links down in the video description below, and if anyone wants to find out more, have a look at those. Sign up for the channel if you haven't already. Hit the bell for notifications for the next one, and keep in touch.